Let me ask you this. Do you have too much on your plate? Do you have more things on your task list than you have time to get them done? Do you feel like it doesn't matter how much you get done in a day, there's always more to do than when you started the day? Well, of course you do. You're a pastor, you're a ministry leader, and that's just how it works. We have more things to do than we have time to do them. And it doesn't matter how much we get done, there's always more that comes in. And part of that's because we're on this cycle, this weekly cycle where we just have, we get this event done or this service done and we have to do it again next week. And the youth service is over. We have to get another youth service ready for next week. And we're on this weekly cycle that we just have to keep going and going. So even when we get something done, as soon as it's done, the next thing starts. And so we're always on this cycle of trying to get things done. And we feel like we never get there. We never get to a point where we can just shut down and say, okay, I'm done. Because it's never done. It's always got more to do. And the problem with that is that we are seeing across the country increasing numbers of pastors who are feeling overwhelmed, who are anxious, who are stressed, who are burning out. Many of them are leaving the ministry, and a lot of it is because they just don't feel like they can get enough done. They have too much on their plate. And what I want to do today is I want to show you how you can get a handle on this pile of tasks that need to be done. All these projects, all these services, all these events, all these things that you need to do. I'm going to show you the steps you need to take to get a hold of them, to get a handle on them. You're never going to get it all done, but I want to show you how you can feel like you're getting ahead and feeling productive every day, every week, so that your anxiety will go down, your stress will go down, and you will feel confident about the way you're leading and how you're pastoring and how you're going about doing ministry. That's the goal. That's what we're going to talk about. And I can't wait. I can't wait because I love productivity and I love helping pastors see how they can make their days more manageable and get things done faster, more efficiently, and ultimately get closer, one step closer to living that dream life in ministry. So let's get started. So the big question is this: how do pastors like us who remain focused on the mission of Jesus and serving our communities without being distracted by everything in the world around us, how do we increase our effectiveness while living a lifestyle that doesn't compromise our health, our families, or our personal relationships with Jesus? That's the question this podcast is going to answer. I'm Dr. Brandon Party Cooper, and welcome to the Ministry Hackers Podcast. Welcome to this episode of the Ministry Hackers Podcast. I'm so thankful you're here. Glad that you chose to be a part. This is a huge topic that I love to talk about. I love productivity. I love helping pastors. And here's the reason why. The reason that we do this podcast, the reason that I do what I do every day, the reason I work with pastors is because I believe deep down in my heart, I believe that you deserve to live a life that's fulfilling, that is enjoyable, a life that is filled with seeing ministry happen, seeing Jesus move in your church, seeing lives being changed through what you do and your leadership and your guidance and how you pastor, seeing that, and then also living a life where you have fun, where you smile, where you laugh, where anxiety and stress and overwhelm are not the rules of the day. That's why we do what we do. That's why this podcast exists. And that's why I'm glad you're here. Because if you're a pastor and ministry leader, there's a good chance you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, even if you don't have a lot on your plate, which I know you already do. But even if that were the case, you'd still feel stressed and overwhelmed because it's always coming, it's always happening, and you're never fully done. And so I'm glad you're here with me today, and I'm excited to talk about our topic today. But before I do that, summer is around the corner. Spring is here. We are right into the beginnings of spring. And even though some of us, we live in countries we live in parts of the country where it does not feel like spring, but it is spring. And that means that summer's around the corner, Easter's around the corner. And really, I don't know how it is for you, but for myself and most of the churches that I work with and have worked in, from Easter all the way through to the end of the summer, there are lots of events happening, lots of things that we're having to plan, lots of things that we're hosting. And what can become overwhelming is managing all those events. A lot of times there's details that get missed, there are deadlines that get missed, or there are just late nights that have to happen in order to keep up with everything, to make sure those events are engaging, to make sure that they do well, to make sure that they come in on budget. And what I want to do today is I want to make all of that simpler. I want to help you uh, get your events planned, make sure they're engaging, make sure they're on time, on budget, and make sure that you are not feeling overwhelmed in the process. And so, what I want to do is I want to invite you to download my free church event planning kit. And what it's going to do is it's going to give you a couple different things. It's going to give you a list of events that you can do in your community that's going to be engaging, that's going to draw people in, that's going to make an impact in their lives, an impact ultimately in how they see you and your church. Because one of the goals is we want our communities to be familiar with us before they ever walk through the doors. And that's what events are designed to do. And so this is going to give you a whole list of ideas that you can engage your community so they become familiar with you. So when they ask the question, where do I want to go to church? Yours is the first church that pops into their mind. The second thing that's going to come in the kit is going to come with a planning guide. You can use this to plan any event that you have on your calendar. It's going to walk you step by step all the way through, making sure you're not missing details, making sure you're not missing deadlines, and making sure the event planning process is easy, is simple, is quick, and you can sit down in a day and use this planning guide, and you can plan every event you have this summer. Sit down with your team, walk through the step-by-step process, and plan every event. So all you really have to do is execute the event when it comes. And so I want to invite you to take advantage of it. You can go to brandonpartycooper.com/church event, download that kit, start planning your events for the summer. Start planning now for the entire summer so you can spend the summer just enjoying the events. You can spend the summer enjoying meeting people, engaging with people, shaking their hands, giving them hugs, inviting them to church, and engaging them in a way that is life-giving. So you're not spending the entire event worrying about the details and everything going on. So again, go to brandonpartycooper.com/church event and get your free planning kit now. Start planning your events for the summer and enjoy the engagement and enjoy meeting and spending time with people all summer long. All right. Okay. So again, as I mentioned before, I love productivity. From my early days in ministry, I have just loved getting things done. I've been a little bit of a geek about different to-do lists and to-do programs. So when I started in ministry, we didn't have smartphones. We didn't have the iPhone or any of the cool apps that are out there. And so when the iPhone came out, I would spend tons of time on the App Store looking at all these different planning apps and all these to-do apps and just getting into all that because I love productivity and I love getting things done. And the main reason I do is because I believe that when you're getting things done, when you're being productive, then you can work really hard, get a lot done, and then on the backside, you can play really hard. You don't have to spend your downtime worrying about all these things you didn't get done or feel guilty that you're playing and hanging out when there's so much stuff left to do, because you know that when you worked hard, you got a lot done, and you got to a point where you could spend time relaxing, hanging out, and never really feeling guilty about, oh, I didn't get enough done, or, oh, I missed that deadline, or, oh, that deadline's coming, so I should spend more time doing it. That's why I love productivity, because I think on the other side of productivity is freedom. And I think that as pastors and ministry leaders, that's what we struggle with a lot, because there's always more coming in. It doesn't matter how much we get done, there's always more to do. And I feel like many of us struggle with feeling like we can take downtime, that we can go on vacation, that we can spend a week away from the church, that we can have a hobby, that we can go home at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock. For some of us, we struggle even going home at 6 o'clock in the evening because there's so much to do and you feel this need to get it all done. And so that's why I want to talk today about how you can get a ton done, feel super productive in the time that you are working in the office and the time that you're getting things done, so that you don't have to feel guilty when you have downtime, when you have free time. That's the goal, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, one of the things that I want us to talk about, I want you to understand, like we said, you're never going to get it all done. And part of it is permission. You have to give yourself permission to have downtime. We as pastors, we have this sacrificial mindset, which we 100% should. We should serve our people. We should approach leadership We should approach being a pastor from a servant mindset. And being a pastor and having a servant mindset means that we are sacrificial. We should be. Jesus sets that example for us of being sacrificial. But Jesus also sets an example of taking care of ourselves. Jesus would pull away and spend time in prayer with the Lord. Jesus would pull away and just spend time with his close disciples. Jesus took care of himself while taking care of other people. And that's not something we're all very good at. But what I like to talk about here on the podcast is living this dream life in ministry. And a key to that is having this highly productive pastoral staff or team under us. Well, it's really hard to expect them to be highly productive and highly effective if we're not doing the same thing. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you 6 steps you can take to be highly productive, highly effective, to own your role as the cultural architect of your productivity culture in your staff, and to model productivity for your team and to help them understand how they can be productive in their own ministries so they also can live their dream lives in ministry, have time with their families, have time for hobbies, have time to travel the world or go golfing or do a puzzle at home or whatever it is they enjoy doing. You give them permission by your productivity. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's really dive into these 6 steps that you need to take today, start moving forward to getting your stuff done and modeling productivity for your team. Okay, so step 1, you want to list everything that you do. Now, this could be daunting. This first step could really be a daunting step depending on how much you do. But what I want you to do is I really want you to block out time and sit down and write down everything that you do. And not just work related, but home related too. What are the things that in your personal life you're managing and taking care of? Because here's the thing. You have 24 hours in a day and you are one person. And though you may wear a couple different hats or multiple different hats, you need to list everything that you do because everything you do has to fit within your time constraints of a day, a week, a month, whatever it is. And so I want you to list everything that you do. Everything. If you take out the garbage at home, if that's your responsibility, write it down. If it's your job to set up the PowerPoint slides for the service every week, write that down. Write everything down that you are responsible for, or that commonly comes to you. So write it all down, make a big list. It's going to take a while and it's going to be a long list, but that's okay because once we have the list, then we can start working through the list and whittling it down to really the goal is for you to do the things that only you can do. So the first step is list everything that you do in a day, in a week, a month, even in a year. If you have annual events that come to you that are your responsibility, write those down. Okay? So first step is list everything you do. The second step is eliminate, automate, and delegate. Now I'm stealing this from Rory Vaden, his book, Procrastinate on Purpose. And I'm modifying it a little bit, but he talks about how, again, we have too much on our plates. Rory Vaden, he's speaking to business leaders and he's saying there's too much on our plates. And a lot of us have a hard time saying no to things. We take on more than we can handle. And so what his whole book is on how we procrastinate on purpose. And what that means is we take this huge pile of things to do and we figure out the things that only we can do. And we put some things off down the road so that we can either get to them later or eventually not do them at all. And so what I'm doing is I'm pulling one section, eliminate, automate, and delegate. What this means is take your long list, this long list that you've done, go through the list and start eliminating things that don't need to happen. You do lots of things in your day that probably don't need to happen. Things on your phone that you just are time wasters. You check Facebook 500 times a day and watch cat videos or whatever. There are things in your day that you don't need to do. And start off by eliminating those. So let's say you have 100 things on your list. I guarantee you could probably eliminate at least 10% of what's on that list. Go through and just put a line right through them. I need to stop doing this, stop doing this, stop doing this. Just eliminate them. Then the next step is to automate. What are the things that you can automate? There are emails that you send every week that you could automate. You can use programs like ConvertKit or MailChimp. You can use those to automate emails, or if there are bills that need to be paid, you can automate those. There's lots of things that you can do to automate the tasks that are on your plate. If you have repeated tasks, things that you repeatedly have to do, search for ways to automate them. We live in a day and age where we can automate a lot of things that take up our time, take up our mental space, that we don't need to. So automate the things that you can. So at this point, you've eliminated some, you've automated others, and then the next step is to delegate. Remember, the goal is for you to whittle this down to the things that only you can do. So the ones that are on the list still, the ones that haven't been eliminated and that haven't been automated, now they are of some importance and some need to get done. So now start asking the question, which things on this can I start delegating out? Maybe you can delegate them to another staff member. Maybe you can delegate them out to a volunteer. The one thing I would be careful of is that you're not just dumping stuff. You're not just saying, hey, youth pastor, I'm going to give you these 10 things. I'm going to delegate these to you because I don't want to have to do them myself. That's really not a great way. Hans Finzel, in his book, he talks about dirty delegation. That's what dirty delegation is we just take a pile of tasks and we just hand them to somebody and say, here, I don't want to do them, you do them. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm saying if there are things that fit in other people's portfolios that have somehow come to you, push them off. Maybe there is something that is somebody else's responsibility, but you're better at it than they are. Well, then it's time to train them up and hand it off. There are things that we say yes to that somebody else could do. Start handing that off. Either hand it back to whoever gave it to you or delegate it out to somebody else. But you've eliminated some, you've automated others. Now it's time to delegate out to other people things that someone else could do. And some of this is just sitting down and looking and saying, hey, I may be the best at this, or I may be the most skilled at this, but can someone else do it? And if they can, even if they need a little bit of training, then let's delegate it out to someone else. So eliminate, automate, and delegate. That's step 2. Step 3 is the list that you have in front of you. You now have some that have been eliminated, automated, delegated. So everything that's left are things that have some value, priority, and things that only you can do. So now it's a question of what do we do with this remaining list? And so the first thing you need to do is assign the time needed to get these things done. Some things will take 5 minutes. Some things will take an hour. Even your sermon prep. How long does that take? How long does it take to study? How long does it take to write? And one thing I would say here is if some things take a range, then assign the higher range. So let's say your sermon preparation, to write your sermon every week. Let's say it takes you anywhere between an hour, hour and a half. Then when you go to assign time to that, I would put 90 minutes and record in minutes because it's going to be easier to manage if everything is in minutes. But I would put the higher time requirement. And the reason we do this is because when we go lower, then what will happen is when things go over that. So if we say 60 minutes and it goes over 60 minutes, we now operate in a deficit of time, and that's not what we want. We want to find ways that we can win time back. And so put that higher amount. So if it's a range, put the higher amount next to every task. So sit down, look at your list, your remaining list, and every task should have a number next to it that is the amount of minutes that it takes to get that job done on average. Okay, so now that you've assigned time, now it's time to prioritize. Look at the list and look at what's remaining, things that only you can do. These are things that only you can do. They now have a time number next to them in minutes. To the left of them, start writing, what are the priorities? What is the most important thing on this list that you have to get done? Maybe it is your sermon preparation, or maybe it's something at home. Maybe it's date night with your spouse that is the number one thing that you have to get done. Whatever the number one thing is, put a number 1 next to it, then number 2, then number 3, and rank everything in priority. Now, some things it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to know exactly where they fit. Force yourself to make a decision. If it's between 2 or 3 things, look at those 2 or 3 things and say, okay, if I can only get one of these done, what is it that I'm going to get done? Put that number next to it, and then go on down the list so that when you're done, you should have a list of the things that only you can do. To the right of them are the numbers of minutes, how long it's going to take you to get each one done. And on the left, it's going to be a priority. These are, this is the priority that everything is in. Now, if you're doing this in Excel sheet, it's nice because once you've done that, then you can sort your list according to priority. But if you're a paper and pencil person like I am, you just list number of minutes on the right, priority on the left, and you're just going to have to go through and in the next step process it that way. Okay, so that's step 4 is prioritize. Now, it's time to start building your schedule. And so when you are packing a box or you are packing a bag, one of the key things that we have to do is we have to add the big items first to make sure they get in there, and then we stuff all the little items around it. But we're going to do the same thing here. So what I want you to do is I want you to look at your list and look at your schedule, whether it's a weekly schedule, monthly schedule, or annual. You probably need all 3 just because some things are going to fall in different categories. And start placing those onto your calendar. So number 1, again, if maybe number 1 is a weekly date night with my spouse. Okay, well then I'm going to make sure that big rock gets in there first. Put that in your schedule. Then the second thing, put it in your schedule. And when you're putting in your schedule, assign the time that you've put there. So if you have sermon preparation and you're putting that, let's say that's number 2 or 3, and you need 90 minutes for that, well, put it in your schedule. Say you're doing your sermon prep on Tuesday afternoon, 90 minutes from 1 to 2:30. Put that in there, make it reoccurring so that you can make sure that's in your calendar every week for an hour and a half on Tuesday. So put those big rocks in, move from highest priority down. Now, what's inevitably going to happen as you go through your task list and as you start prioritizing them and then assigning time to it and putting it into your calendar, what's going to happen is you're probably going to run out of space on your calendar. You're probably going to run out of time to get everything done. That's a sign that you have too much on your plate. And now that we've prioritized everything and we have assigned time to them, what's going to happen is when you get to the end of your time allotment, when your week is full, your month is full, your annual calendar is full, and you still have things on your list, these are things that you need to put on the shelf. That's step number 6. Shelf the remaining. This is the procrastinate part of what Rory Vaden talks about. Put it on the shelf. Here's the thing. It doesn't mean it's not important because it's made it through this gauntlet where we didn't eliminate it, we didn't automate it, we didn't delegate it. It's important. However, it's not as important as all the other things that made it onto your calendar, which means that you just put it on the shelf. You don't eliminate it. You put it on the shelf until either you get things done that creates more room. Maybe those become pet projects that when you have spare time, you can work on those. Maybe there's something that sit there until you hire new staff or you have new volunteers come in. Whatever the case is, these are things that you put on the shelf until a later time. And then what Rory Vaden talks about in his Procrastinate on Purpose is over enough time, we feel like these things are important. We feel like they are valuable, that they need to be a priority. But what we realize is, when a few months go by or a year goes by or even 5 years go by and it's still sitting on the shelf, we realize it really wasn't that important. It's really not something that needs to be done. You can't do everything. And that's the hard part for us as pastors and ministry leaders. We feel like we should be able to do everything, but we can't. We only have set amount of time and set amount of energy and set amount of attention and focus and capacity. And even though everything may be valuable to be done, it doesn't mean that we have to be the ones to do it. And it doesn't mean that it needs to be on our calendar and our schedule to get it done. And so once you get through this list, you should now have your calendar, your weekly schedule, monthly calendar, annual calendar. Everything is in place. Everything is where it should be. And now all you have to do is execute it. Just execute. This will, by design, will decrease your stress, will decrease your overwhelm, your anxiety. And quite honestly, it's also going to manage a lot of your interruptions. Because you and I both know that people come to us with their emergencies. But in the end, they're just not always an emergency. They just want our time and attention. And when we have a schedule that's set and planned out, and people come to us with emergencies, we can ask the question, is this really a priority that I'm going to give up the thing that's on my calendar that I've already said is important Or do I just need to put this off into another time? Maybe you have a slot in your calendar for meetings with congregants or meetings with people in your community or emergencies that are coming. Um, just move it into that slot. So it's not an interruption now. Just because they come to the office and need you right now, or they call you on the phone and need you right now, doesn't mean that you should answer that call right now or handle that situation right now. It just means that, okay, this either doesn't need to be handled and isn't an emergency, or can be delegated out to somebody else, or it just means I need to put it in that slot that I already created for emergencies, for random meetings, for interruptions, whatever. The goal, again, is for you to do the things that only you can do. If somebody else can do it, let them do it. If you need to raise up volunteers, raise up more volunteers. If you need to hand out more tasks and more projects, do that. But the goal is for you to do the things only you can do. Because when you're focused on the things that only you can do, that means that everybody else has the ability to step into their calling. Everybody else gets to be a part of the ministry. And you get to spend time with the other aspect of your life, your personal life, your friends, your family, traveling, hobbies, whatever it is you enjoy doing that brings life to you, that gives you energy, that reinvigorates you to do the ministry you do every week. You have time for that. And that's the goal. Because your personal well-being is vital to God being able to accomplish what he needs to in your church and through you in your ministry. You have to take care of you. There's no way around it. Nobody else is going to take care of you. You have to. You have to make sure you prioritize your time in such a way that you're healthy, that you're focused, that you're spiritually mature and connected to God. And there's just too many tasks on our plate that steal all that away. And so by the end of this project or these 6 steps, you should be there. You should be able to get everything you need to done in a day and still have time to take care of yourself and still have time to enjoy life, to be fulfilled, to be low stress, and ultimately to be able to do this ministry thing for the long haul. Ministry is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And some of us act like it's a sprint. And here's the thing. When we're sprinting through ministry, getting things done all the time and running from this thing to that thing, we eventually wear out. We have to pace ourselves. If we want to serve a lifetime in ministry, we must pace ourselves. And prioritizing everything, building a schedule, and sticking with that schedule is how we run this marathon and serve God and serve people at a high level for a long time. All right, so I hope this is helpful. I hope you can go through these steps, get a handle on your schedule, and really see the change in your life, in your ministry, and quite honestly, in the people around you, in your church and your congregation. All right. Again, don't forget to get your ministry planning kit. Go to brandonpartycooper.com/church event. Get your kit, get started, plan your events out, sit down, go through this list, be more productive so you can model productivity for your team and you can spend time with those you love on a daily basis. All right. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next episode.